Alright, so great news. In this product showcase, we're taking a look at the Silverstone Raven RV02, the second case to Silverstone's unique Raven series. Now, like the original, the O2 features a unique design that carries some similar aspects to its sibling, but really it's a whole new breed of case. They've continued to use the innovative stack cooling effect, which has the motherboard rotated on a 90-degree angle. However, as you'll see, they've also made some major design changes that hopefully are for the best. The case currently retails for just under the $200 price tag, and that lumps it in with some very popular competition. So what exactly does the Raven RV02 offer that sets it apart? Well, let's take a look. One thing you notice right off the bat is that the Raven is a bit of a funky shape. It's rectangle as opposed to the usual square. It measures 19.8 inches high, 8.3 inches wide, and 25.3 inches long. The body is constructed out of a very solid steel and accented with plastic for the top and front panels. It weighs a hefty 27.6 pounds. First on the list is the top panel. We have our power and reset buttons along with just a simple 2 USB and audio jacks. Like the RV01, there is an angled blue LED bar along the top, and the front face has a uniform angled design. Jumping to the bottom, we have 3 major air intake ports. This is the source of the Raven's cooling. And then at the very bottom, we have holes for water cooling tubes. Now, because of the realigned motherboard, some things really aren't where they should be. At the back, we have just a removable dust filter over top of the power supply. So where do your connections go? Well, up back to the top. Removing a portion of the panel gives you your typical layout. At the back, the power supply area, along with 3 fan controls, a 120mm exhaust fan, I/O area, and 8 PCI expansion slots, along with plenty of venting. So if you weren't already a bit confused, Silverstone has also swapped the access side panel over to the right side of the case. Release a few thumb screws and it easily pulls off, revealing a well-painted black interior. At the bottom is one of the literally big features of the case. It's completely taken up by 3 massive 180mm fans, and they all include easy-to-remove dust filters. Focusing on the motherboard tray, the case supports SSI, CEB, ATX, and MATX form factors, and there are plenty of spaces around the motherboard tray in order to run wires from behind. They've also included a heatsink backplate opening. Now, everything's a bit flipped around, but it's all going to make sense when fully assembled. On the bottom at the right, we have the hard drive bays, and then 4 5¼ ROM bays with the familiar looking screwless system. The drive bay cage is actually held in by 4 thumb screws on each side of the case, and there is no screwless or rack style setup in order to easily swap the drives. The cage has rubber grommets in order to reduce the noise, and as you can see, supports only 3. Yes, 3 hard drives. Now, before we get started on the build, let's take a quick look at the accessories. They've included an SSD bracket, which won't eat up a hard drive space, 3.5-inch drive bay brackets, along with a 3x3 pin Molex adapter in order to plug in those 180mm fans. There is also radiator brackets, a power supply tie-down strap, and a front 3.5-inch cover. So when fully assembled, you get a better understanding of the reason for the rotation. Hot air rises. The powerhouse of fans at the bottom are there to keep things cool, and the sideways angle of the board means that you won't have the hot air from the video card going up into the CPU like you would with more traditional alignment. Now, despite the fact that the Raven RV02 is a full tower, with the giant fans at the bottom and the rectangle design, it really doesn't feel like it has a lot of room inside. And we found the process of actually assembling the unit a little bit tricky. Installing the CD-ROM drive actually required us to bust out the installation manual in order to find out how it's done. Apparently, the trick is to find a screwdriver thin enough to fit into these little oval holes along the side and push the front cover out. From there, however, the screwless locking system is really simple. Also, while the case has no trouble fitting longer cards, if you intend on filling your bottom PCI Express slot, you're going to have to be prepared to fight for room with your hard drives. In our case, the issue actually prevented our video card from installing at all. Now, Silverstone has included a good number of cable spacing options in the motherboard tray in order to run wires up the back and then out the front in order to keep things relatively clean. However, there isn't a lot of room between the back panel and the tray, so you're not going to be able to store any wires there, and you're likely going to have to spend extra time making sure that thicker cables aren't clumped up or crossing each other in order to be able to fit the back panel on. Now, the major attraction to the Raven RV02 is that its unique design promises to deliver some exceptional cooling, so of course we had to put it to the test. The RV02 really pulled it off. It literally forces all of the warm air out the top and then brings in the cool air from the bottom. And because of its orientation, none of this hot air passes over the other components. It's relatively simple, but it's an incredibly effective design. And that wraps up our look at the Silverstone Raven RV02. The company has done an excellent job in taking their original concept with the RV01 and revamping it into a case that aesthetically is likely to appeal to a larger audience. It's a great looking case that has a lot to offer with its unique concept. And best of all, their innovative stack cooling effect really works. It's a chassis to consider for those who may be having airflow problems. On the flip side, it has its fair share of nagging issues. For starters, space for only 3 hard drives is definitely too few. And then on top of this, they've made the process of installing devices fairly complicated. Having to juggle dozens of screws is completely opposite to the simplified, clean, and screwless direction that a majority of manufacturers are going. I hope you enjoyed our product showcase on the RV02, and don't forget to subscribe to receive all of our video updates.